When you hear the word refugees, what comes to your mind? Maybe you imagine people from a different culture than you, less educated or financially stable than you, people coming from a third world country somewhere far away, just like we often see it in the media, just like I thought about the refugees myself. My name is Olga, and I am a refugee from Ukraine. It's been over a year since I left my country, but I still struggle to accept this new label, because this label sometimes seems to define me more than my actual personality, skills, and life experience. Let me tell you a story. It's February 23rd, 2022. It's evening. I come back from work to my apartment in Odessa. I'm arranging a meeting with a client, and I go to sleep, hoping that it won't take too long so I can meet for a drink with my friend later. Now it's February 24th. I wake up from a shockwave of an explosion. I turn on my phone and it's flooded with messages about tanks and rockets and bombs all around the country. My mind cannot process it. How can it be possible? Is this really war? War always felt like something distant, something that happens in the news to other people. It can't be happening to me, right? I understand that being in the city is not safe anymore. So I pack a few things and I go to my parents' house in the village. The next morning, my dad wakes me up. Because it's the air raid alarm, and so we have to hide. And here I am, in this cold and humid basement of my childhood home, in pajamas and a winter jacket, in awkward silence with two of my parents, thinking that even here we can't be safe. If a rocket lands nearby, we will be buried alive. But what if they come in their tanks here? So I have to leave the country. But where should I go? To Europe? But I won't survive there on my savings for too long. And I will have to ask for help and shelter and even food. And what would that make me? A refugee? But I can't be a refugee, right? I am educated, I have a home, a job, and Europe is where I go on holidays. But a few days later, when it became clear that the special operation is going to last more than 72 hours, me and my friend decided to leave the country and take a few more people with us. We were together a group of 4 women and 2 little boys. One was 6-month-old baby. It was this cold winter day. No snow, gray clouds. It felt like the gloomiest day ever. And we spent half of it in the queues at the military control. The whole country was in absolute panic. And the 4 of us felt scared and vulnerable and extremely protective. We were not hoping for any miracles, and we were ready to fight with anyone who would stay on our way to safety. At 3 o'clock in the morning, We got to the border with Romania. The 2 kids were finally sleeping, but the 4 of us felt very tense. I was exhausted, and I was scared. I was afraid that they might not let us in, or they will take the car, or they will let us in but put us in a jail. So the only focus of my attention were those customs officers that I somehow had to convince to let us through. But there were other people within that customs area that surprised me. They were carrying big boxes, walking among the cars and knocking on the windows. At first I thought, they're just using the situation and trying to sell us something. So I didn't even lower the window. But then we realized they were volunteers. And they were giving away sandwiches and water and even phone cards. And then I looked at that messy queue of exhausted and nervous people, and it got me thinking. Those people, we, lived just a very normal life a few days ago. But in these circumstances, we are just refugees. Refugees, people whose well-being now depend only on the kindness of strangers. And I must tell you, kindness was the last thing I expected on my refugee journey. But kindness and sympathy and help were the brightest things I saw everywhere. Those volunteers at the border with food and blankets from the very first days of the conflict. A Romanian friend I met just once, a few years before, who contacted me and invited to come over when I was left completely alone and unable to decide where to go next. And when I finally got to Sweden, those families who took me in until I could find a job and a new home. Swedish people in general shattered all my stereotypes of being cold and reserved people. They turned out to be quite approachable and hospitable. I still remember that group of people, 6 friends, whom I met in a huge crowd during midsummer celebration. They invited me, a stranger, to join them for a Swedish traditional picnic when they found out that I was Ukrainian and new to Sweden. And then those people who started volunteer organizations and helped first with basics like food and clothes, and later with legal advice and jobs. And people who donated money and clothes, some of which I was wearing until I could afford to buy my own. It was a difficult time. But I found great support and friends in Sweden. And to all those people, I want to say, thank you. I have never taken it for granted. Since I left my country, my emotional state looks like a roller coaster, as you can see. But in my low points, I think about the people I met during my refugee journey. And I remind myself that the world is actually good. Yes, people can be inexplicably cruel, but the majority of them are enormously understanding, sympathetic, and kind. Kindness of strangers can literally save lives. It continues to save mine. It has this power to bring me back to a normal social human again when it feels like the world is ending and I'm going down with it. It helps to find this resilience and strength that I never knew I had. So when I am on my feet again, I can give back and support those who still need help. In the world of today, it feels like any of us can become a refugee at any moment. Any of us. And though we might not have the power to stop all the conflicts at once, it is in our hands to help those who need help and treat them with understanding and dignity, precisely as you would like to be treated if you ever have to flee your home yourself. I hope you will never have to experience this, but if you ever do, I hope that you will be met with kindness and sympathy, just as I was. Thank you.